You are now watching a True Knicks Talk podcast post-game show live with your host, CP.
We are live, the True Knicks Talk post show. Let's get a round of applause for our New York Knicks. Game 5 at 30 points, 121-91 is your final score. Shout out to the New York Knicks getting it done at home, taking care of business. This feels absolutely phenomenal after the first or the last couple of games, obviously in Indiana. Woo! Nick, I'm breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief right now. What are the vibes like over there, Nick? What are the vibes like?
Definitely a sigh of relief. You know, since OG's been down, things have not looked up for the Knicks, and they were able to come in and take care of business. You know, we've done what we've needed to do at home so far. Hopefully, we don't need to come back to the Garden, but I'm sure we'll get more into that later.
We will get into that. We will get into that. As always, make sure you all are hitting that thumbs up on the post-game stream, streaming to the YouTube. Make sure you do that. Subscribe to the channel, whether you're on X, come over to the YouTube, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. And make sure you're subscribing to the He Did This To Me podcast. Link's going to be in the description down below. Make sure you subscribe, all that good stuff. The channel, CPNYSports, has personally eclipsed 700 plus subscribers. I could not thank you all enough for this feat. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for the support. And hopefully there's a lot more to come, not only with the New York Knicks, but the New York Rangers, the New York Mets as well. We will talk about those teams. But for right now, we are here talking about the New York Knicks taking Game 5 at home at MSG by 30 points in a dominating fashion. As always, hit the live chat. Let me know in the comment section, what are the vibes like? What are the vibes? Let me know. Let's go, Knicks. Maybe I can get some Let's Go Knicks in the chat. I don't know if I can. I know we got a lot of people in the chat in terms of differentiating sort of fan bases and fandoms, but I get it. I get it. The league doesn't want the Knicks to succeed, but we are here to talk about our beloved New York Knicks. By the way, Junior Swingman, salute to you. Shout out to you. I Heart is my GOAT, he says. LFGK. And Brunson is the MVP. Don't care what anyone says. Finishing in the top 5 in MVP voting. He is Junior's MVP. Thank you, Josh. Welcome back to you as well. I know we took a couple of games off the post game, and it just so happened coincidentally to be Knicks losses. It didn't shake out that way. It is a scheduling issue. Listen, we weren't going to go live. Listen, I didn't want to go live after last game. I'm going to say that. I'm going to take that one on the chin, and the Knicks took that one on the chin. But Game 3 was a little bit of a different story. Nonetheless, I appreciate you. And Daniel, thank you so much for being here. Happy Tuesday to you as well. Okay, enough of the shameless plugging. We have some New York Knicks basketball to talk about. 121-91, the Knicks take a 3-2 series lead in the ball game. Not going to say anything. Nick, you start us off and you give me the segue here. Set the tone, set the scene. What did the Knicks do right in your eyes to win this ball game? Because guess what? We are going to talk about this game shifting back to Indiana, where the Knicks looked absolutely abysmal. We'll also probably talk about the Knicks play in Indiana since we were absent for the post games in games 3 and 4. What are you feeling, man? Like are you energized? Are you sort of not timid, but like, are you wary? Like, what's your energy as a Knicks fan right now? Let me hear.
Listen, I'm definitely hype about the win. I would be lying if I didn't say that my mind already has gone to thinking about game 6. And can we please pull out a game there? Because I really don't think my heart can take a game 7. But, you know, honestly, at the end of the day, I thought that there was a couple things that I saw early and then throughout this game that make me feel like we may have turned a corner and we might have a different mindset now going forward in this series. And one of the things was the fact is we weren't backing down. don't be afraid to pick up a tech here and there. Okay. Sometimes you got to go get up nose to nose with somebody, especially after they hammer one of your guards. You know, I had no problem with Isaiah Hartenstein and the way he reacted early on. And then obviously Hartenstein, I almost say he's the player of the game over Brunson just because of the supreme effort he gave and the way he pretty much broke the Pacers back with his continued going to the offensive glass, keeping plays alive. And I mean, it was keeping the crowd engaged. And then, you know, we scuffled a little bit in the first quarter. We looked like we did come out with a ton of energy. And then we really just took the game over in the third quarter. So, I mean, second quarter, it felt like, all right, you know, we got a chance. And then, you know, they still keep it close and within striking distance. And then in the third, we get it to a point where no matter what they do, even when they have a little quick run, it seems like it always happens. Like, you know, they come out and they get it down to 7. All of a sudden, Miles Turner, you can't stop him, and no one's getting up and crowding him. I was texting you during the game. I was texting my dad during the game. How does he shoot 3 of these in a row, and nobody's getting up and crowding him and running him off that? And then, you know, Isaiah Hartenstein, he had a similar third quarter against Embiid. Remember, he couldn't stop fouling him. He picked up 5 fouls in a quarter. It's like, what happens to this guy at halftime? But we were able to right the ship. And when everything started to get a little bit crazy, it felt like Brunson all of a sudden would give us a couple good buckets. We were getting good possessions. We were taking a lot of time off the clock. And so we were able to just close down the win. Whenever you see Shake Milton, it's either a really, really good thing or a really, really bad thing. And so tonight it was a good thing. And hey, we have to. We have given this guy so much flack all season, the both of us. We have to beg on our knees for forgiveness from Alec ball player Burks. The guy is a professional ball player, and he has been huge for us, and he will continue to be huge for us, especially with OG being out. And hey, man, one more win.
One more win is absolutely right. And I tweeted it out in the actual sort of pre-game sort of time frame on my X account, saying that Alec Burks, for lack of a better term, was going to be the New York Knicks X factor tonight. And he absolutely was, providing 18 points off of the bench. This is a guy that, me personally speaking, I know we both did it, but me personally, I'm going to take accountability in all the clips that I've clipped of myself on our post games, all of our True Knicks Talk sort of podcast episodes, just going after Alec Burks and his chucking of the basketball. This guy has absolutely stepped up in a major way. He did it in Indiana, and he continues that trend with the short bench here for Tom Thibodeau in Game 5. This is absolutely phenomenal basketball. And not only that, and shout out to All Things Mets Talk. Shout out to Isaac. We appreciate you all being here. Love this team, absolutely. And absolutely, this is the energy right here. Your LFG, absolutely. We need that energy through and through. I appreciate you, Isaac, being here. We absolutely, I felt like needed that starting lineup change, and that started with Deuce McBride starting in front of Mr. Precious Achiuwa. Now, I will say, Precious Achiuwa had a hard-fought 23 minutes off the bench. I believe he had about 5 or 6 rebounds, 4 points to go along with it off the bench. Felt like he did what he had to do off the bench, but Deuce McBride, a player that we've all been waiting to step up to the plate here in this series. Had a great series last series, against Philadelphia all in all. Was waiting for him to step up. You see the stat line here. 17 points, 4 assists, 3 of 7 from three-point land. Deuce McBride absolutely stepped up to the plate. And you are right, Alec Burks is that guy. He was not afraid to shoot. And you know what? When we're talking about afraid to shoot and the topic of being afraid to shoot, Josh Hart to start the game really grinded my gears, Nick. And I'm not sure if you can speak to the same level. I know that we were texting back and forth, so I'm sure you're going to say more of the same here. But he was very timid to start the game, and to see him open up that shot selection, open up that aggression was very good to see, and the New York Knicks absolutely needed it. Listen, this was a game that I personally felt like as a fan after what happened in Indiana, that the Knicks needed to win, because if the Knicks dropped this game, if they had done so, I was very, very, very weary of this coming back to MSG. Very weary. This is a feel-good freaking win. They go out and blow us out on their home court last game in game 4. And how do the Knicks respond? How does Tom Thibodeau respond? All we heard after the last game was that Tom Thibodeau has been running his players into the ground. No OG Anunoby, no Bojan Bogdanovic, who, by the way, went down on a freak accident, was coming into the playoffs already injured from a previous injury years ago, went down on a freak accident with Batum falling on his leg. Julius Randle injury had nothing to do with minutes. Mitchell Robinson's injury, I want to say it's nothing to do with minutes, but you know where I'm going with this. You know where I'm going with this. Nothing to do with Tom Thibodeau's minutes that the New York Knicks are now dealing with these injuries. It's nothing to do with Tom Thibodeau's injuries. And if you're saying that, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm sorry. I have to get it out of the way. I'm sorry. So all that being said, because I had to get that rant out of the way, and I'm heated because after Knicks losses, that's all you hear about is Tom Thibodeau's minutes this, Tom Thibodeau's minutes that. But what do they say after wins? Do they give Tibbs any credit? Do they give him any credit for starting Deuce McBride over Precious Achiuwa? We don't hear any Tom Thibodeau credit. Miss me with that. All the national basketball media miss me with that. Y'all are frauds. Y'all don't know what you're talking about. And the article that you actually sent me, I apologize, I don't remember who actually wrote it, said it best before the game that you actually had sent me. And it was a beautiful read, and I highly encourage everybody to read that. And listen, I'm not only looking at the national basketball media with this, there's a select few accounts on Knicks Twitter that I can personally go and nitpick at tweets spewing just absolutely dumb BS on the timeline regarding our coach Tom Thibodeau and him running our players into the ground. I don't like it. I'm not going to stand for it. And that's what I'm going to say about that. So maybe let's shift this over to more to a positive tone, but I know you have a little bit more to speak about that. But I just needed to get that through because that drives me insane. What you got, Nick?
So the article was actually by Tim Cowan, ESPN senior writer over on ESPN. Definitely worth a read. Really good, old anecdotes about Tibbs. Tibbs was kind of jacked back in the day. He had some shoulders on him. That was a cool article. But no, it's interesting that you say this today because I just responded today on X, a post by NBA Central where Chandler Parsons says this is why players poll came out with guys and they don't want to play for Tom Thibodeau because it doesn't last. You can't sustain it in such a long season. He did get a little bit of credit. I will Stan Van Gundy, who kind of annoys me. He did give him a little credit at the end and say that it was absolutely ridiculous and said it, he really went into the fact that it's ridiculous and the things that he talked about, especially when he talked about some of those other great players and how many minutes they played in playoff series. And I've seen comparisons where they go back and they look at Ewing averaged 47 minutes in a playoff series once. And I responded to that post by NBA Central today. And I said, Jalen Brunson averaged 35 minutes per game, which was 12th overall. That's simply nothing. There's simply nothing to the argument other than ignorance. Tibbs' team strictly finished. They statistically finished the season strong with a 600 win percentage in the last 20 games overall since he's been with the Knicks. And people just got to stop with the anecdotes and do some actual research. It's just there's nothing real to it. And when you watch that team, it doesn't look like they're dispirited and like they don't have enough because they've played too many minutes. I mean, what exactly is it that you want? When who do they want to get these minutes instead of these guys right now on this team? Do they want
Seriously?
more Shake Milton minutes when in tough situations? And Julius gets low bridged. I don't somehow that has to do with Tibbs playing him too much. And then OG pops a hammy. That was in his 28th minute of the game. And Mitchell Robinson has had a foot injury every single season in his entire career, and somehow that's Tibbs' fault, even though he hasn't been here for his entire career. It's laughable at this point. It's a lazy narrative. I'm gonna be interested to see what Draymond had to say after the game because he was on the TNT broadcast, and Draymond, He, not only has said the shit about Tibbs, he's also said things about, Brunson and the Knicks being a fluke and all this nonsense. And you know what, Draymond is starting to realize that trying to, doing what we're doing right now and being on TV, that's that next part of his career is rapidly approaching. Okay. So he needs to start doing that Knicks for click shits that, Charles Barkley and Shaq have, made one of the biggest aspects of their career in the last few years. So now that's what they got to do. So that's the end of the day, man. I mean, listen, once we saw that he was ranked 15th out of players on an official ESPN poll of the best players in the first round, and that Jalen Brunson was ranked 15th there, we just know that they're just trying to rile us up at this point. It's enough. Like, they're just trying to. It's nonsense. We get no credit. Who cares? We don't care. We put in the work. We come in every day. We put in our, we come with our lunch pails every single day. And that's the way this team plays. It's a blue collar team. And Brunson, he continues to be amazing. He continues to write this poetic, epic story of his playoffs and what he's done from the very beginning. He continues to be that guy. And, it doesn't matter what you throw at him. He's going to continue to attack you, unlike Halliburton. And that's the thing. Halliburton and his Indiana team, they're great front runners when things are going well for them. They can get out there and, they'll have a good time and everything's going great. He's talking shit. They're all excited. They're high-fiving. But they don't have that we're coming back from a huge deficit grit, because they're not going to continue to grind, and we are going to continue to grind. That's why we have to come out strong at the beginning of this game and not let them get out in front and run away with it, because if we are close with them in the third and fourth quarter, they will wilt. The only time they haven't wilted when the game was close was they got a miracle shot by a nothing player. And you know what? Hey, man, that happens every once in a while. And that happens. And when it does, and Brunson misses a few shots that he typically hits in that game, and that's how it goes. But I'd like to see him do that a second time. I think that if we keep it close, I think we have all of the grit and experience in the crunch time to be able to pull it out. Halliburton, my thing with him is that, you know what? Brunson may have a game where he's not hitting, but he never has a game where he's not shooting. This guy's not, he's turning down layups. And that's the thing, man. For my guys, I always want the gunslinger who's going to go down firing. I never want the guy who's going to shy away from the moment. That's why I like, say, a Kobe over a LeBron when we're talking about all time, is because he is going to go down firing. He'll never have a moment like LeBron had in the 2010 finals against Dallas. And Brunson is one of those guys as well. He's going to put him up. Hitting them or not, he's going to hit him up. He's going to put him up. And more often than not, this season, especially when it counts, he's been hitting them.
And that's really the key here, too. Like, 35 points or 35 shot attempts, right? Field goal attempts from Jalen Brunson compared. And I know that the offense runs through Jalen Brunson, right? It's no mistake. You see the ball at the top of the key to Jalen Brunson's hands every single time, whereas the Indiana Pacers offense really isn't running through Tyrese Halliburton.
It's not just numbers, though, CP. It's eye test. It's not just numbers. It's eye test.
Absolutely. I agree with you. But also, just in the statistics category, right? When you look at the field goal just attempts, 9 field goal attempts for Tyrese Halliburton. That's food. That's food, bro. That's food. Like, he went 5 of 9. I'm privy to that. I understand that. But as your star player, the guy who made the All-Star team, the starter for the All-Star team over Jalen Brunson, to turn in 13 points in an even series on the road, when he said that he wasn't really a big fan of the Knicks crowd, which has nothing to do with it. I just like to throw that in there with my Knicks bias, right? To throw up only 9 shots in the game is absolutely hilarious. But by the way, one thing you'll never hear about Tom Thibodeau, and one thing you'll never give him credit for, and that he instilled in this game, which I love, and I wish that they had done this at some point in Indiana earlier, because they might have done this late, but I wish they would have done this earlier, is the full court pressure. Mm-hmm. That was flustering Indiana in the first half. Deuce McBride, Dante DiVincenzo up full court pressing the Indiana Pacers. They got 1 to 2 to maybe even 3 turnovers after on that. And that's something that Indiana does well against the New York Knicks, is that full court pressure. Listen, we all understand that the New York Knicks simply are an abysmal inbounding team. Nick, we've talked about this all the time. The inbounding with the New York Knicks needs work. It's abysmal, and this is something that's been going on for not only this season, but also in seasons prior. And that's where the Indiana Pacers have thrived, especially in Indy in this series, is that full court press. And the Knicks finally got their brains out of the gutter. And Tom Thibodeau said, enough's enough. We are going to put that full court pressure on them as well. And they folded during it. They couldn't take what they dish out. They couldn't. And that was one of the key points to sort of building that sort of momentum in the first half. Before we get into this any further, before we do, I just want to shout out some people. Mr. Delight for you. Let's go Knicks defense. Absolutely. Shout out to you, Mr. Delight for you. Shout out to my guy, Ant from the Subway to Shade podcast. Make sure I'll subscribe and over to him. Some great Mets content. Throw Alec Burks on that stat sheet. Dude came up big when it mattered most. Absolutely. I usually throw up the starters here, but I honestly should have thrown up Alec Burks here with 18 points off the bench. 5 rebounds as well, if I'm not mistaken. He was absolutely phenomenal in this ball game for the New York Knicks. And just honestly, he didn't change his ball game. I'm going to rephrase that. He did change his ball game because he's not as trigger happy with the shots. He's selecting the shots better than he did in the regular season when he was getting bulk minutes. I'm not sure if you noticed that, but he is actually passing up on multitude of shots that he would have shot in the regular season, that we would have seen him chuck up and maybe brick. He's deferred to Jalen Brunson when they are on the court at the same time. And honestly, you got to point it back to Tom Thibodeau probably telling him, you got to give the ball to Jalen Brunson, and you can't toss up as many shots as you did in the regular season. Really, because it really is a big difference for me when watching Alec Burks. Donte DiVincenzo got in foul trouble early, was able to maintain sort of his status in the game, especially on the defensive side, only turned in, 8 points, had a big putback dunk on a Jalen Brunson miss, but all in all, really wasn't there. 0 of 6 from three-point land, 7 rebounds to go with it, but he was flustering the Indiana Pacers on the defensive side of the ball, got in the face of TJ McConnell, got in the face of Miles Turner. That is Knicks basketball, and I am so happy that Donte DiVincenzo was fighting out there for his team. That's what you look at, and that's what you like to see. When you aren't contributing statistically in the point category, how do you contribute in a multitude of other ways for your team to win the ball game? And Donte DiVincenzo, whether it showed up on the stat sheet or not, did just that in this game. Now, we're going to come back to this graphic. We're going to come back to this box score because I did just want to sort of throw up this graphic here in terms of the team statistics. I don't know if you have anything to say about this. I'm going to actually give the floor to you. I'll be back in 1 minute. I apologize. I do got to go off camera. Take it away. These are the team statistics for tonight's ball.
So, I mean, first and foremost for me, Alec Burks, it seemed like before when he came back to the Knicks, he thought that he was still playing with Elfrid Payton. He's not playing with Elfrid Payton anymore. Now he's playing with Jalen Brunson. And yes, he was giving the ball up a lot more, but he's a professional basketball player, man. He came to the Knicks. He had a tough time. I think sometimes giving a guy a chance to sit down and watch for a little bit, that can really help and, have the game slow down for him a little bit. He's got to move his family, all the different things that go along with that. So, now he's back and, he's playing the way that we expected him to play post-trade. And with OG going down, he gets an opportunity, he steps right in and he gets it done. You gotta love the overall lineup change that Tibbs made to start the game. We went with that smaller lineup that we were going with when OG was out. Precious Achiuwa still ends up playing big minutes, but Precious Achiuwa is a bench player. He's not a starter in this league. And if you could, I'd rather see Deuce out on the floor getting those those big minutes if you're going to be, having to play one of them because our guy OG is out. If this isn't the first game the Knicks win when Devo doesn't hit a three. Yes, it's actually the first win, Junior. It's the first win when he doesn't hit a three. And so far in this series, when he's hit at least 3 threes, we're undefeated. But the one thing that I would like to talk about when it comes to Ragu is, like you said, didn't have the point total, didn't shoot from outside like you would typically like him to, but he fills up the rest of the box score for 3 offensive rebounds for a guy who's 6'3" at best, 7 rebounds overall, has 4 assists, 3 steals, a huge block. Now, did the block on my feed? I was watching it on ESPN. And did they come back from like a commercial, and then the block was already happened, and I saw the replay that he blocked Siakam, but I didn't get to see that live.
Which block was this? Which block was
this?
When
DiVincenzo blocked Siakam, the one block that he had.
I saw it. I saw it. Clearly.
I don't know what it was, man. I was watching on, YouTube TV. I was watching on ESPN, and mine, it was a commercial, and then boom, it came back, and we were running back up the floor, and they were like, "What a block!" And then I saw the replay. I thought maybe they, ESPN messed up overall, but maybe it's a YouTube TV issue. But yeah, man, I thought that the lineup change, it allowed us to guard the 3 better. We're not having Precious on the floor, having Deuce on the floor instead of Precious, smaller lineup. We were able to guard the 3 much, much better. Salute to Carlos. And then also, I thought that it allowed us to get out and transition more ourselves. And, just most teams that love to get out in transition, they don't love to get ran on. They don't love to get run against. We, when they started offensive rebounding against us, you saw that all of a sudden we didn't like that. And just like you said with the inbound and with the playing full court, and that's another thing, having Deuce in the game allows you to do that. Him and Dante DiVincenzo were extremely active to the tune of 18 turnovers for them and only 9 for us. So, I mean, when we get a turnover margin like that, when, we score in the 120s, we have a really, really good chance. And Tyrese Halliburton, dude, he's not a star player. He can have huge games, but I don't see him take over games. And I was really annoyed when that he had one shot that he hit his first 3 and we weren't out on him. And it's like, dude, make this guy a driver, make it put it on the floor, stop letting him shoot threes. I mean, in the last game, it was mind-boggling how often we were continuing to let this guy shoot, wide open, totally uncontested threes. But then we made an adjustment. We got on top of that. At the beginning of the game, Josh Hart was pissing me off. Josh Hart was having, he was turning down shots. He had like 3 turnovers in the first quarter. He was, doing there was one time where it's not even that he didn't even turn down the shot, but he was standing over in the corner with DiVincenzo on the wing, and he was just standing there. And it's like, dude, if you're not even going to be ready to catch and shoot that ball, you at least got to run through and vacate to give us a little bit more space on that side. And yeah, I don't know. But then once again, as Josh Hart always does, he finds a way to make an impact on the game, ends up having, 18 points, 11 rebounds. He shoots 2 of 7 from 3. He has 1 huge block, a steal, 3 assists. Overall, very good game by Josh Hart. It's just he looked a little bit out of it to start the game, which is, you feel like you never see him look that way. There is times he's been turning down shots, but typically, even when he does that, he finds a way to get into the paint and make something happen for himself or for somebody else. So it was a little frustrating to start, but, at the end of the day, this is probably the most in control win we've had all season. And, just as Subway to Shea said, I could definitely see Ragu going off in game 6, and we're going to need that. What we don't want in game 6 is to need another 40 plus from Brunson. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets it for us, but it would be nice to have a couple other guys, get into the 20s, or at least one other guy get into the 20s, and maybe a couple other guys in the teens. But we got 18 from Burks tonight, 17 from McBride, 18 from Josh Hart. They picked up for Ragu, and Ragu was able to get it done in other ways, as I talked about before.
Yo, I'm not going to lie to you. I got a couple points here to go off this from. We're about 29 minutes up into the post game. We're obviously hyped because the Knicks have just pulled off a 30-point victory at home, now going to Indiana. Game 6 is going to be at 7 p.m. on Friday. There is an extra rest day, so we're not playing on Thursday.
Huge for Brunson.
Get an extra rest.
Huge for Brunson.
Huge.
Brunson physically looks so much better this game than he did last game. So the fact that he was able to get out of this game without any other incidences, and now he gets an extra day, I think that's massive for him.
Facts. Yo, please hit that thumbs up for us. I definitely appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel. If you're over on X, come over to the YouTube, subscribe to the channel. I definitely appreciate it. We don't only talk about the Knicks on this channel. We talk about the Mets and also the Rangers as well. The infamous Blue Shirts banner post game obviously has been gaining some steam. We are going to be talking about that on the Thursday post game. And it's just a great time for MSG Sports right now if these two teams can get it together. Obviously, both with 3-2 series leads at this point. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and keep commenting your thoughts in the live chat. I definitely appreciate it. Shout out to Subway to Shay, my guy Ant, Mr. Delight for you, Junior, Carlos, Jeremy. I definitely appreciate it. This is the key. Jeremy, I appreciate you because this is really the only reason why I wanted to bring up this slide. And this is the reason why I do it time after time after time after time after time is because the rebounding. The Knicks, when they are at their best, they out-rebound their opponents, and they don't just out-rebound their opponents, they out-rebound their opponents on the offensive side of the glass. Shout out to you, Mr. Isaiah Hartenstein, for tying a New York Knicks record in a playoff game, I believe, for most offensive rebounds with, I believe, Mr. Charles Oakley, 12 offensive rebounds in a ball game. Believe that was said on the broadcast. Correct me if I'm wrong. Isaiah Hartenstein is a dog. He's going to get his money. It's going to be from the New York Knicks. Don't worry about that. He is a dog, and he is stepping up in a major way. And listen, Isaiah Hartenstein, he pissed us both off, especially in the beginning of that third quarter when I told you I'm not getting too cocky with that 15-point lead going into the second half because the third quarter Knicks can strike at any time. At any time. And you saw Miles Turner come up with 3 straight three-pointers for the Indiana Pacers to cut that lead to 7, I believe, in that third quarter very early with about 9.5, maybe 9 minutes remaining. Isaiah Hartenstein's a dog, though. He keeps on working. He keeps on getting the Knicks' second chances. Salute to you, Mr. Isaiah Hartenstein. Josh Hart did piss me off. He pissed us both off. The turnovers. He had 3 to 4 early turnovers that I was just like, what are you doing, Josh Hart? He had 3 to 4 open looks from 3 where I was like, what are you doing, Josh Hart, passing up on those before he finally let it loose and sunk one, swished it, drained it. Yo, the New York Knicks are playing these playoff games, especially this game tonight. Only one person in this lineup, in this starting lineup, started for the New York Knicks at the beginning of the season, and that's Jalen Brunson. Everybody else, you take a look at the progression of this season when we go back to October of 2023. What are we, 8 months out from that point of the season? Everybody else was scheduled to be backup role players. And now they are starting for the New York Knicks in the Eastern Conference semifinals. Does that not blow anybody else's mind? Josh Hart was never scheduled to start. Deuce McBride sure as hell was never scheduled to start. Isaiah Hartenstein was never scheduled to start. Dante DiVincenzo didn't start, although I'm very glad that he got in earlier than everybody else did because of the Quentin Grimes situation that was unfolding back in 2023. Yo, I think as Knicks fans, Nick, sometimes we get very bogged down in the heat of the moment in terms of where we're at right now, and we don't look at where we came from just maybe 6 to 7 months ago. This is a true testament to the grit of this roster, the roster construction, bringing in players here through and through that can make contributions, whether it's off the bench or whether it's starting. And it's a testament to the head coach being able to navigate it all. the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows of the regular season and the postseason. And I really just would think that it would be a very big disservice to the stream if we didn't point that fact out. Because obviously, we're here in the heat of the moment talking about a Game 5 Eastern Conference semifinals playoff performance here, but we don't talk about how we got here and the personnel that we have. A 7-man rotation in the playoffs that got dwindled by default because of injuries. It's crazy. I don't know if you want to talk about that at all, but I figured that I'd be the one to do it and initiate that conversation because this is nuts. Like in the grand scheme of things, when you think about this team and the progression over the last 8-9 months of it, this is like next level. I haven't seen this before in a long time of any team in the NBA.
But nobody in the national media talks about it. I've heard more about Halliburton's back and ankle this series than I've heard about, that all NBA all-star player we have sitting at the end of our bench, that 25, 10, and 5 that we have sitting over there. I've heard more about Halliburton and the different things that they're dealing with, and I've heard about OG Anunoby not all of a sudden not being in. I've heard people talk about the excuses that Knicks fans are now making because we have all these guys missing, and it's just like at the end of the day, we feel like and yeah, the excuses are so absurd they made CP go offline. But no, we at the end of the day, man, like this team has a next man up attitude. It's not just talk from them. Jalen Brunson says it. Tom Thibodeau says it. We all say it. Next man up, and that's what we do. That's how we play. Different guys are going to come in and they're going to play a certain way. We have Alec Burks coming in and, being a professional and being ready and continuing to be ready. And when his number's called, he's able to give not just quality minutes, but like really good plus minutes. I mean, Alec Burks played fantastic. One of the other things I like that he does is when they're doing the full court pressure, Burks is better at bringing the ball up against the full court pressure than Brunson is, than Josh Hart is, than definitely than Deuce is. Burks, he's kind of a little bit bigger, he's a little bit stronger, and he just, puts the guy on his back, goes up the court, gets it across the line, gives it to somebody, and, goes off and runs off and gets to the corner or something. So, we're going to need the Burks Deuce, the minutes that we can get out of them, and how well they can defend and bother guys like Halliburton, and can they, the two of them together, outplay McConnell? To me, that's like the key for the next game, for Game 6, is if we can continue to have those guys have quality, positive games like they did tonight, and keep McConnell under wraps where he's not just taking over on us, and realize that this team is going to make runs. They're going to have certain times where everything is falling for them and everything is looking good. But as long as we keep up a certain level of defensive intensity for 48 minutes, seems like we can never do 48. Tonight we had some times where it seems like it slipped. Can we do it for 48? Can we do it for 45? And over there in Indiana, it's going to take a maximum effort the entire time, because once these guys get running and things get going, that's when they start feeling themselves a little bit. We need to take their hearts from the very beginning. This is one of those games where it's like, from the very, whoever said it earlier in the chat, like, is this the game? Like Ragu hit 3 threes, like in the first, few minutes, some shit like that, or Brunson just, being unstoppable. But we're going to need somebody else to step up besides him. And, I know that Thibodeau is going to make even more adjustments from, last game to this, from this game to next. He's always looking for an edge. And I don't feel like Carlisle is going to make adjustments as well as he is. They're going to make some sort of adjustment at the beginning of the game to try to do things a little bit different, something that we haven't seen before, whether that be double teaming Brunson more at the beginning of games or not double teaming him at all. Who knows? It's going to be something like that. But like you said, if we can continue to dominate the glass, and there you are, definitely, they're going to be embarrassed about how we work them on the glass this game. So they're going to come out and make an emphasis on that early in the game. And that's okay. But we need to, as we've shown we can throughout this playoffs, continue to keep up that pressure, make them wilt towards the end, and pull out a close one. I mean, listen, if we were able to blow them out in Indiana, that'd be awesome. It's not likely. I don't, I'm not banking on it. But our ability to win a game close, I think, is much stronger than theirs is, and that's been proven throughout this playoffs and throughout this entire season. We just have to give ourselves that opportunity, and if we do, I think we'll come away and Knicks in 6.
And really, we didn't really go on the post game, obviously, for games 3 and 4 in Indiana. But what really stood out to me is exactly what you just said. The Indiana Pacers beat the Knicks at their own game. They fed off the home crowd, and they fed off of the second chance points in the offensive rebounding category. Whatever the final result was, definitely to the naked eye. Obviously, I didn't look at the stats book at the end of the day. It really was in favor of the Indiana Pacers, and that's what shifted here in MSG in Game 5. So the Knicks need to do a better job in Indiana being more aggressive to start off on the offensive glass, and I agree with you. Absolutely, that is going to take a total team effort. And my concern in this game going into this Game 5 was how the Knicks were going to guard Mr. Pascal Siakam, because he had his way in Game 4, whether it was on Precious Achiuwa or whether it was on a undersized man in Josh Hart. Listen, Josh Hart does a great job through and through every facet of the ball game. Obviously, he frustrated us with the lack of shots to start this game, with the turnovers to start this game. But I think that he did a good job in terms of settling in. But in Game 4, Pascal Siakam, the bigger guy, was having his way with Josh Hart. And so that jury is still out how the Knicks respond in Indiana in Game 6.
There was an adjustment to that in this game, though. There was an adjustment to that in this game.
There was. And what was it? Take it away. What was it?
I thought it was really that Josh Hart did the work earlier and made him catch the ball further away. And when he did catch the ball closer to the basket, we immediately brought the help, which was typically Hartenstein, and were able to challenge him at the rim. I thought we did a much better job. Our defensive rotations overall were a step quicker this game, and there was a lot of shots that they were getting that were totally unencumbered at the rim. Honestly, early on in this game, I'm reading through my notes is kind of my text thread between me and my dad and between me and you throughout the game. And one of the things I said to my dad, like, how many open threes and wide open layups are we going to give them? And then we tightened that up. And all of a sudden, all those shots that were at the rim, we were either blocking the shot or contesting the shot, and it was missing. So we have to we can't wait until a few minutes into the first quarter to tighten that up. It has to start from the whistle on Friday. It has to.
Yeah. And I want to say this too, like, not to make an excuse for the Knicks, because the defense was obviously Swiss cheese. The effort was just absolutely lackadaisical. But let's be honest, the Pacers weren't missing in Game 4. Like, any open shot that they got, they just simply weren't missing anyways.
Sure.
Like, even if it was contested or not, they just weren't missing. So we just got to hope that they continue to miss those either contested or uncontested shots, because it just simply didn't matter whether they were contested or not in Game 4. The lid was simply on the basket for the New York Knicks, especially to start off. And Jalen Brunson, I believe, started off 0 for 5, 0 for 6 in the game. And that was a telltale sign for me of a bad storm to come in Game 4. Sideboard of Shade, my guy Ann, is asking any update on OG Anunoby. Listen, I'm not confident OG Anunoby steps onto this court in this series, let alone next series. I'm not. I don't think we see OG Anunoby for the rest of this playoffs. I'm not going to lie to you. I hate to be that guy. If by some miracle of the imagination, the Knicks are able to extend this playoff run, and I'm not going to say miracle, because obviously I don't want to say that it's like out of reach, because they're only one game away from the Eastern Conference Finals. But if they're able to punch their ticket to the Eastern Conference Finals, the only way I see OG Anunoby step onto this court is maybe if the Knicks force like a Game 5 or 6. I don't think he's anywhere near the level of play and the fast speed pace of the game of basketball right now to step onto this court. What we heard in Game 4 was that he was doing swimming pool activities. Whatever.
He's out of the pool now. He's out of the pool. He's out of today's report is that he's out of the pool.
Exactly. But what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean?
He's
Listen,
out of the
man,
pool. He's out of the pool,
no,
baby. Be optimistic. He's out of the
nobody
pool.
knows when it comes to the Knicks injuries in their
You're never gonna know. You're never gonna know.
You're never
You
gonna
know it's
know.
gonna be
He's
cryptic.
out of
You
the
know they're gonna
pool.
play it close to the vest
Yeah.
always. They're never like the
He's
Knicks never
out
just
of
come
the
out and say
swimming
like he's
pool.
out for 7 to 10 days. Like they never come out and say that ever.
No. All you need to know is that he's out of the swimming pool. Whatever out of the swimming pool means to you and me, Lord help us, because we don't know ourselves. We'll never know. We don't know. And just like being honest about playing sports in general and just how big of a nuisance a hamstring injury is. And he went down in writhing pain and he let out a huge yelp when he went down in that game. It's not a good sign, man. It's not a good sign that the Knicks are going to get OG Anunoby at any point in this series. I'm not expecting it for game 6. If they force a game 7, I'm not expecting it for game 7. And I'm sure as hell not expecting it for a game 1 or 2 in the Eastern Conference Finals. I know that's me being probably a negative Nancy, but just knowing the way that, one, the Knicks hold these injuries close to their bodies, and the way that this has all been shaking out in terms of the reporting and the swimming pool, out of the swimming pool, etc. Two, OG Anunoby, really, like we said in this podcast, time and time again this season when he went down, not showing the willingness to play through injuries, which is fine. He's very entitled to that, right? Like we understand that we're at a point in time right now where we need him to play, but he's not going to play through something that he doesn't think he can play through. Not that the trainers are going to clear him for fucking play anyways. Like all those things, like it just makes me think that let's just think about these basketball games without OG Anunoby until we hear otherwise. That's what I think, really.
I hear you on that. I would like to hope that he can be back. If we move on and get to the Eastern Conference Finals at some point in that series, but it's definitely going to be touch and go. Everything that you talked about, we've already talked about before, as far as him not typically being a guy who comes back until he's all the way right. Though I hope the playoffs would be a motivator for him that would make him want to come back as soon as he possibly can. But then if he comes back too early, is he just going to pull it again immediately? And so who knows? A hammy is touch and go. Every single one is so totally different, both, depending on the guy and the level of the strain and or tear. Shout to the chat, Mr. Delight for you, as well as all things Mets talk. Seem like they are some old school, Mets. I'm sorry, Knicks fans. But then also Carlos Ortiz. We get the whole pools are used for physical therapy part. I don't know if you got the joke, but yeah, no, we're just saying that it's a little bit cryptic and not specific how they report on the fact that he's in the pool, now he's out of the pool. What does that mean as far as a timetable is what we're kind of looking for. But no, we won't get with this New York Knicks management. And another thing with all the things Mets talk, I got to bring this up because this is actually an interesting sports debate because I bring this up all the time. Only hockey players play through serious injuries. Hockey players are known for, being so super tough. And there's I'm a hockey guy. I love the Rangers. I watch a lot of hockey. They are extremely tough. I think that when it comes to things like, teeth and stuff like that, they specifically do play through things just a lot more than players do in maybe basketball. But, basketball, when that happens in the regular season, guys come out in the playoffs typically. It doesn't happen that often. And, I would imagine, if somebody lost a tooth and that's all that there was and the game could continue, they'd probably do it a little bit more. It just doesn't happen as often. One thing I think is a little misleading about that, hockey players, they're on skates, yo. When you're dealing with like a knee or a hamstring or something like that, I think that's a little bit easier to deal with when you're pushing off and sliding on skates as opposed to running and jumping on your feet. Okay, I do think there's a little so sometimes you see one injury that in one game you can go ahead and you can play, and then the other one it's like, yeah, well, it's a little bit different when you got to actually use your feet for all of the propulsion and momentum and things like that. I think sometimes it's a little bit easier on skates, but not taking anything away from the toughness of hockey players. They're very tough. When it comes to this next game, we have to come out strong at the beginning. Okay, have to come out strong at the beginning. If we're within like 4 at halftime, I'll feel good, and then our bugaboo throughout the entire season is the beginning of the third quarter. And luckily enough, we'd built up enough of a lead that at the beginning of this third quarter, when they made a run, we were able to then make our subsequent run. And then I think we scored 15 straight at one point and, put the game pretty much away. But that Miles Turner hitting 3 threes in a row with nobody getting up in his chest, that can't happen.
Can't happen.
Cannot happen in the next game. That sequence in the first quarter where we're throwing the ball away and they're getting layups and wide open threes cannot happen. We need that attention to detail from the very beginning, from the first whistle. It has to be the case. And I think if we do that, we can definitely beat this team, even without OG Anunoby, even without 3 of our 5 starters and 4 rotation players. We are still better and can beat this team because we have a stronger constitution and a stronger mindset than they do. And we have a better coach and a better game plan. And we have a better best player. So all of those things can definitely, lead us to victory. But we're going to be playing against a team that is extremely, proficient when it comes to the offensive end and the ability to score, especially when they're at home. They're going to be rocking out in Indiana, and we need the Knicks to take down the Hicks.
Yeah, I agree with you, dude. I agree with you all in all. I think that the Knicks just need to continue to build that pressure in the full court too. I think that that's what it's going to take. The Indiana Pacers as an offense, obviously, it's like we need, like, obviously they try to run and gun, but they've proven in this series, especially in Indiana, that they are able to run a half-court offense semi-competently, right? Semi-competently. And we're just going to need to pick them up full court. And the rotations need to be as good as they were today because, like you said, they're going to be rocking. And that's just going to need to be the fact. Like, we just need to pick up that full court pressure and rotate on guys and be as efficient as we did today in terms of turning them over and turning the ball over. I think going back and the whole sort of not to go back on this, but the hockey injuries, like hockey players through like broken legs, they play through broken legs. I agree with you, actually. A lot easier to go through it with skates, et cetera, et cetera. I think that was the one comment there. And Carlos Ortiz, no, it's not your bad. It's very valid here. It's not your bad. Like, the thing that we are sitting here wondering is that usually when you have, like, let's say a baseball player, he has a pulled hammy or a hamstring strain or whatever. They say grade 1 strain, out however many days, like on the IL, 15-day IL, et cetera, et cetera. We have no grade for what OG Anunoby went through. I can only assume it's probably the worst grade with the yup that he let out. Probably a grade 3 strain, which is no bueno for any basketball athlete looking to push themselves off of the court into an acceleration for a dunk or a layup into the air. That doesn't play well for basketball players. So we don't have an official grade, but that's kind of like where we're poking fun at, like, and not to poke fun at it, but just like how closely the New York Knicks hold these cards to themselves.
See Julius Randle.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's it. That's all you need to know is the information that we got about his injury from when he first got it until him eventually being ruled out with season-ending surgery. That's something that the Knicks do. And you know what? I'm not even mad at it. And I get the gamesmanship part of it. And, Randall was a different situation specifically because he was going against doctor's orders to try and come back. And so I get that, but it is a little bit unique. And it's like, as far as my team and the gamesmanship part, great. As a fan who wants to know what the fuck is going on, it can be a little frustrating, but that's all.
No, I agree with you. And how about this comment from Carson says it all? Game 4, Brunson, in terms of his actual, I guess, leverage that he was getting on his jump shots and those floaters simply just wasn't there. So to see Jalen Brunson take that leap from Game 4 to Game 5 in terms of actually looking like he was healthy enough to play gives me some very good confidence. I was also getting nauseous watching him, especially in the early goings of Game 4. That was brutal. And
Plus
honestly,
plus an extra day.
Yeah. And then you get an extra day here in between game 5 and game
Huge,
6,
man.
which
That's
is
huge.
absolutely crucial. It's huge. So shout out to you, Carson. Shout out to All Things Mets Talk, Mr. Delight for you, Jeremy, everybody, Carlos, everybody in this chat. Just Knicks, by the way, salute to you. I appreciate you being here. Salute to you, Just Knicks. It's actually a pleasure to get on here on stream and talk about a win with you all in about a 121-91 30-point victory at MSG. Listen, I can't take this to get to game 7, man. We need to end this in game 6. I can't take a game 7, man. My heart can't take it. I need a game 6 victory. I need it on their home court, and I need to shut up Charles Barkley and Shaq on that TNT broadcast. And I think it's going to be on ESPN this next go around instead of TNT. But man, how crucial would that be to just evade a game 7 at MSG and just end it in 6? And that doesn't just go for the New York Knicks. That goes for the New York Rangers as well. End it on their home ice. Please, 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 please. We'll be live for the Blue Shirts Banner post-game show on Thursday after game 6 in Carolina as well. Listen, we're about here 55 minutes into the stream. I don't really have much else to talk about. This is a great victory through and through. The Knicks did what they did. They did exactly what they needed to do in terms of actually making the adjustments in this game in comparison to games 3 and 4. Game 3 was absolutely a heartbreaker with that Nemhard prayer that he threw up there late in crunch time. It was a dagger. I was very heartbroken over that loss because I really thought it was a game that maybe, just maybe, the Knicks could have gotten out away with a victory in Indiana for a 3-0 lead, which would have changed the entire landscape of this series, especially when you're talking about a 30-point victory at MSG in game 5. Final thoughts here, man. Final thoughts, Nick. What are you looking for in game 6? Plug whatever you need to plug to. Make sure you all subscribe into the He Did This To Me podcast. I'm going to throw up the actual on YouTube for you all to subscribe to here down below at He Did This To Me on YouTube. And just final thoughts here before we round everything out.
So if you look at the box score, we had 7 guys play at least 23 minutes. Well, actually, Precious Achiuwa is 22:57, so splitting hairs. All of those guys, if you look at it, Alec Burks, Precious Achiuwa, Jalen Brunson, Miles McBride, Isaiah Hartenstein, Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo, they all impacted the game and played well tonight. And that's what you need, as Tom Thibodeau always says. You're not going to replace Julius Randle, OG Anunoby, Bogey, Miles, Mitchell Robinson. You're not going to replace these guys by big performances by individuals. You have to do it with the collective. And that's what we have been able to do. And that's what we're going to need to do if we want to pull this out again in game 6. And I just thought that tonight, everybody brought it. We had a couple lapses, but overall, we outplayed them. We're going to need an even better effort in game 6. We're going to need Tibbs to continue to do his thing as he has all season, and especially in these playoffs. And we're just going to need to come out with a certain level of intensity, especially to start each half. And I think if we can do that, we can end this in 6. Rangers, y'all can end it in 6 as well. Go down to Carolina. Rangers dominated that game yesterday, except for the beginning of the 3rd period. All of a sudden, they came out and just put a barrage on us. Just don't let that happen. We got this. Both teams need full team efforts. Go out there, handle business. Knicks, Rangers in 6, moving on to the conference finals. Make for a great weekend. Let's see it happen.
Yeah, I agree with you. Nothing more, nothing less. Ended in 6. Both MSG teams. Blue Shirts Banner postgame will be live on Thursday after the game. True Knicks Talk podcast will be live on Friday after the game. Nothing more, nothing less. We'll be on here. You know where to catch us. Obviously, subscribe to both YouTube channels if you're watching on here, whether it's live or on the replay. Bottom right-hand corner, subscribe to the channel. Hit that thumbs up. Please, if you are in here, hit that thumbs up. I definitely appreciate it. And yeah, I have nothing else to add. This was a great performance. It was a gritty performance. and it was just the bounce back that this New York Knicks team needed. I don't want to hear anything about Tom Thibodeau between now and Friday. We're not having any Tom Thibodeau discourse. We're not talking about regular season minutes. We're not talking about playoff minutes because it's the playoffs. Best man up, best man plays. And if you can contribute to this team, you're probably playing. Nothing more, nothing less. Let's go Knicks. We'll see you all later. Shout out to the chat as well. I appreciate everybody in here. Josh, Jeremy, other Josh, Junior Swingman, Subway to Shay, and my guy Subway to Shay, Carlos, everybody, big task. Y'all showed out. Isaac, way up in the chat. Everybody, Daniel, up in the chat. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much. Let's go Knicks. Let's go Rangers. And man, this team right here, that team needs to step it up because I got no other words for them. But that's for a different podcast. We'll see you all later. Let's go Knicks. See you after game 6 in Indiana. Let's get the job done. Peace.
Thank you for watching the True Knicks Talk podcast. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe for more Knicks content.